All right, family, welcome back. My name is Jeremy Analo Mensah. I'm with my co-host,
Eric Igwe,
with a Shot of V&J podcast. And we got a lot of important things to talk about today, right?
We do.
We got a great show planned for everyone.
I know. We in our work clothes.
yeah. You know, we gotta make it happen.
Yep.
So first, man, let's jump into these headlines, man.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Supreme Court leaked opinion.
Yes.
I know it's generated a lot of buzz as far as there was a leak that came out from a legal opinion from Justice Alito showing that the court is likely to move towards overturning Roe versus Wade. Right. Yeah. Roe versus Wade. You know, for those know, made allowed for abortion to take place and set as a precedent. Mm-hmm. But with the court becoming more conservative now, there's been fears that the court that the potential could be overturning Roe versus Wade. And of course, there's other states, including Texas, that have trigger laws. And I think Texas has a trigger law, I believe, that within 30 days of Roe versus Wade being overturned, that their abortion laws take place. Right. And so you got Texas and other states that have trigger laws, and you have a lot of people nervous about this. And so I'm just really surprised that a leaked opinion will come out. There's people wondering, some people think it's the liberals did it, some people think it's conservative did it. I'm on, there's a lot of conspiracy theories on how this got leaked. It's unprecedented that this got leaked. I'm disappointed it got leaked. I'm wondering what, there's different theories on that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if it's true, if this opinion is actually true and the court is going to rule that Roe versus Wade is overturned, that's going to have some seismic impact across the country. It may be generate a huge election wave for Democrats potentially. And so it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think like you said, the impact on the elections is going to be huge, just to see if it sort of galvanizes the base of the Democrats to sort of, assuming that this is in fact true and this is going to come down. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I think that we're seeing the effect of a long-term plan and policy coming from, Republicans to pack the courts and to put, key players on the courts. And really, I was just talking about this the other day, the judiciary, if I can say the word, is turning into a legislative branch of some sort, because now they're making laws that we have to abide by, that become ultimately the law of the land, right? Via these type of decisions, right? Mm-hmm. So it really highlights the importance of paying attention to your court system and your federal courts in particular, state courts as well. Yep. Because a lot of these ideas are coming from state Supreme Courts as well before they percolate all the way to the Supreme Court. Yeah. But yeah, man.
But some people are going to blame the legislator too. I mean, years go by, there's a chance to codify Roe versus Wade, right?
Yeah.
Because right now, you have Roe versus Wade, and I thought it was going to stay as a precedent. So it is a bit surprising that they're changing. Now, looking at the opinion, I think they're going, the belief, at least what I've read, is that they believe it's more could be left to the states, and so that has a huge impact, because then you start looking at the cases, what should be left to the state. So there is the implications of if should not be, since it's not in their mind. There's is the time. I think the whole thing or argument you hear is that abortion is there's there's nothing in the Constitution that ties to abortion, right? Yeah, and therefore since there's not a law in place, then people want to, the courts and conservative courts probably likely want to defer back to the states and give it to the states to make the decisions, which has huge implications. You start looking around like, what other cases can come before us that is not currently law, but it was based on precedent and on a court case that could, be unraveled. So, and like I said, the legislator, I know that there's, there hasn't, years have gone by. We also have not had Roe versus Wade also, like I said, codified into law. So
wasn't there talk though about them trying to do that? Like the Senate having trying to come up with some emergency bill to,
You talking about recently?
Yeah,
they did, but they're not gonna have the votes. I mean, they're
clearly
they won't go through the Senate. I mean, they don't even know if you'll get Joe Manchin, right? Senator Joe Manchin.
Oh man.
Yeah. What's the topic you got in mind?
So we'll talk about Kendrick Lamar, right? The Heart Part 5.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So we've been talking about this for a little bit, right? I just actually had a chance to actually kind of watch it. And it is a very groundbreaking video, right? I think just the cinematography, the imagery that he's putting on with the video is important, but the lyrics as well. And I actually didn't have a chance to really break down the lyrics all the way, but I think no matter what becomes of the record in terms of the success, in terms of the sales, the message that he's coming with is going to be one that when people look back 10, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, it's going to be real a big deal.
I'm a huge Kendrick Lamar fan, so he's one of my biggest artists that I love listening to. I've listened to him since Good Kid, Mad City, and I had to go back later on and listen to Section 80.
I was going to say Section 80,
Section
Christian Corinthians. People slept on that. People slept on that. That Section 80 was fire to me. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Just like going back to that Good Kid, Mad City. When I first listened to that album, I was like, masterpiece. Like, you can't say the favorite album. I'm like, masterpiece. To Pimp a Butterfly.
Oh yeah,
was next, like same thing. Another masterpiece.
One of my favorite, To Pimp a Butterfly, by far. I think that's probably my favorite. And I know there's a lot of people I know that don't like it because they feel like there was maybe too much social commentary. But I love that album.
You, the song You, All Right. There's so many great songs on that album.
Yeah. Complexion.
Oh yeah. And so it's deep, and so I love it. And I love those. I love Kendrick because his music make you think, right?
Yeah.
It breaks it down. It really makes you self-reflect. It really makes you think about society and how you should progress. Like, and that's why I love Heart Part 5. So, I've been waiting for Kendrick for 4 or 5 years. Like, hey, when's the new album come out? Because the last big album I think was Damn, right?
Yeah.
And so that won a Pulitzer Prize, right? And so I think he actually got a Grammy off that album too, Best Rap Album. And so I've been waiting for 4 or 5 years gone by. I've been waiting. Everyone's been waiting for this new album. And so, when I saw the song, I heard, I heard about the song, but I was like, then I hear more press about the song coming out, because then I listened to it and I was just blown away. I mean, I was like, wait a minute. Heart Part 5 was, if you're gonna take some time to come back,
that's how you do it.
You better come in with fire. And he came in with fire with that song. The video was just breathtaking. The fact that he using like deep fake technology to show, I think it was Kanye. And I think it used the words like, my friends think I'm bipolar when showing the image of Kanye.
Right.
Jussie Smollett,
Kobe,
O.J. Simpson, and then he did a tribute in for Nipsey Hussle. And I read that he got Laura London's stamp of approval on that. And so the way he ended it with Nipsey image and the words, and Nipsey talking from like as in Nipsey's talking from heaven, how he's with the words Nipsey will tell people right now from heaven. The way he ended that was just, it was beautiful. I was like, man. And so, and just the song of trying to encourage people to, at least my impression, I got to listen to.
That's what I said. You got to listen to multiple times because it's a lot.
It is a lot to take in. So I listened a couple times, but just, I think the sense I get is he's really trying to encourage people to get outside of quote unquote what the culture is and really pour into people, really give into people, really do great things, really pour and get out of the quote unquote culture that has really plagued us as a community. And so that's some of my early impressions I got. But of course, I'm gonna keep playing. I've been playing on a loop, right?
Yeah.
And his new album's coming out. His 5th studio album's coming out this Friday. So I'm ready to go buy it.
Yeah. This is the lead single on that album, right? Or
I gotta see because I don't know if that's gonna be part of it.
Or something. Yeah.
Or that's just the song, one of his songs. But Heart Part is part of his. He has a Heart series of songs,
which I've heard. I want to say like 2 come to mind, but I
Part 4 was pretty good too.
Yeah, I have to go back and listen to each one of them because now it's like, okay, what was he saying 1 through 4? I think impressions on it. So one of the things, and just referencing the lyrics, the hook. I want. So it's kind of a play on the Marvin Gaye "I Want You," right, which is a classic. If you don't know, go check that out because that's a classic. But I want you to want me too. I want the hood to want me back. So when I was thinking about that, what came to mind is just, the people that we mentioned have contributed so much to the Black community, to the hip hop, to the culture. And it's like they've contributed so much, but yet in return, they have not gotten, to see, I guess, the fruits of their labors, so to speak, and the respect. They've gotten the adulation and the some of the trappings of success, but not the true hearts of the people. So I feel like that's kind of what he was speaking to, especially with the Nipsey Hussle situation, knowing how Nipsey Hussle went out and what happened.
Yeah.
I think there was a pull there from Kendrick.
Even the fact that I think there was a lyric where he was like, Nipsey, he was talking as Nipsey saying, I see the pain in you as you shoot the bullet, let's shoot the gun. And it was like, man. And he's encouraging people like, hey, for my people, and I think they can continue to invest, like, and to, it was touching. It
is.
Yeah. So I'm looking for the album. I'm gonna be on it on Friday. I'm gonna be playing it this Friday when it comes out.
Me too. We'll have more to say about it, I'm sure, once when
he's finished.
Yeah,
he's gonna be on that Mount Rushmore.
He will be, man. I mean, I think honestly, the truth is, for this generation, he's already there.
Oh yeah,
and
easily.
You might be able to make the argument that he's on there now. He's one of the greats, one of the GOATs. I know a lot of people are not as big on his flow and his style, but I think he's as creative as an artist we've ever seen in hip hop. And certainly his message is equally it matches his level of talent when it comes to the artistry that he displays. So yeah.
And then I think the third topic, we're going to talk about NBA playoffs.
The playoffs, man.
Playoffs, ladies on the playoffs, man. Oh, man. It's, right now I'm looking at it. I need the Suns to win. I want to see the Suns and the Bucks face each other. The Suns right now, the tie with Dallas. I expect the Suns to beat Dallas. I'm a Houston. I was born and raised in Houston. I'm a Rockets fan. I don't care. I'm not a Mavericks fan. So
you saying it like I'm not a Rocket, I'm not from the H. Like
I know,
like
but I don't know if you're still a Rockets fan. So
hey,
I can't.
Man, hey, 94, 95. Need I say more?
Those are great years.
Yeah, man.
Nothing like it.
Go ahead,
nothing like it. So I mean, for me, like I said, I'm looking forward to it. I expect the Suns to come back, win Game 5, win the series. They're going to face Golden State because the way everything's going on with Golden State between the injuries of John Moran and don't know if he's going to come back and then the Dillon Brooks suspension, a lot going on. Golden State's clearly going to move on, right? And so it's going to be Golden State and Phoenix. It's going to be a heavyweight matchup going to 6-7 games. I'm hoping Phoenix wins. I actually think it's Phoenix time to go back to the NBA Finals. That's my thoughts.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, it's more up in the air. I don't think Miami. I know Miami's up there, but I don't trust Miami. Them. I don't trust Miami enough for me to say it's them. And so with Philly coming back and tying the 2-2, and that's when Embiid came back.
Yeah.
Since Embiid come back, they have not lost, right?
Yeah.
So we're interested to see how that series goes. But Milwaukee, it all going to depend on whether Middleton comes back. I think they should be able to get past Boston. But hopefully Middleton.
Be tough, man.
Well, the way some games has been
Boston hungry, man.
But Boston just tied it 2-2. So
that's what I'm saying.
So it's gonna see what Boston's energy is gonna be Game 5.
Agreed.
Because you can't let Milwaukee come in and just smack you in the mouth.
Not at all.
Just like that happened. I think it was the first game, and so it's gonna be interesting to see that. Like I said, the East is gonna be. I'm hoping Milwaukee, but we'll see. What's your thoughts?
I got Golden State. I had Golden State winning it all the way since maybe the fourth week into the season.
And you're a Lakers fan, right?
I'm a Lakers fan through and through. But Golden State, to me, offensively, I don't see anybody that can match them. When Poole is doing his thing, you got Clay, you got Steph, and then you got, Draymond in the mix, making sure everybody's, it's a well-oiled machine. I just don't see anybody beating them. And I think Phoenix has, they have the formula to win. They're deeper than they were last year in terms of Bridges has stepped up, Cam has stepped up, so they look good. They look good. But still, offensively, I don't think that they can match Golden State. And I think Golden State is also underrated defensively as well. So we're gonna see.
But the Suns, the one thing I like about the Suns, they got big body people. They got people who can defend.
Yeah, they got DeAndre Ayton.
I mean, between Ayton, Crowder, Bridges is, I think, was runner up for defensive player of the year. You got Booker can play some decent.
When have they faced the 3-headed monster? Like I said, if Poole plays like I know he can play, I don't know, man.
But Poole's also somewhat struggling. He is still trying to find us because he's some games he's balled, and then you saw like the Denver game. The first 2 games he balled, and the last few games he kind of
I think that's fair, and that's to be expected to a certain degree because this is kind of really his coming out party in terms of doing what he's doing. But I think Steph and Clay are going to be the anchors, and they're going to say, "Young man, just do your thing, just go, just play." Yeah. And if he's fearless like I know he can be. I don't know, man, but we'll see.
I think the Suns be ready. So
we're gonna see. We shall see.
It's gonna be good.
Yeah, in the East, I got Milwaukee coming out the East. I mean, that's the safe bet. You never know what could happen. You know, Boston could surprise us. Miami could surprise. Well, Philly's another team that don't sleep on Philly.
I gotta see what Harden can do.
Yeah, because Harden looked good last game. Harden looked real good.
He may not see that for another 4 or 5 games.
Rolled that clock back on us. So
can he keep that up?
We're gonna see. So, but I got Milwaukee. I got a Milwaukee Golden State finals matchup with Golden State winning in 6 games. So
okay,
we'll see.
We're gonna see.
All right. Well, that concludes our top headlines. When we come back, we're gonna talk about: are you in or are you out? Right?
Okay.
How do you work within the system, within the government to make change for the Black community, right? And for minorities at large as well. And so we're going to get into that conversation. And this is Jeremy and Alamenta signing off with a shot of E&J podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a shot of E&J podcast. You got your co-host, Eric Igwe.
My name is Jeremy and Alamenta.
And so thanks for tuning in. And so we're now going to go into our topic. Are you in or out of the system? Yes. So I know we're trying to figure out what does that mean to be in or out of the system. So we wanted, have an opportunity to talk because, for many of us, or some of us have talked about it, I'm sure the course of it, discussions within the Black community or other communities of colors is talking about what is the best path? Should we work in the system and try to effect change? Or should we work outside the system, be independent to really influence change, right? And so what is that? What is the, figuring out what's the best approach and what does that mean to work first? But the first thing before going there, you got to understand, what does it mean to work in the system or outside the system? So Jim, what's your perspective on that?
So I think working inside the system is, you're working in a job, maybe a government job, maybe you're working for a corporation, but you are a part of the larger economic system and the structure that we have in America. You know what I'm saying? That's you have a typical 9 to 5, you're engaged on that level. Also, you could be working inside the system and you support the system from the outside. So maybe you are an entrepreneur, right? But you are pro-business in a sense. And so you're kind of, you're an advocate for what the system allows you to do, right? And so you are using that in order to make a living for yourself and do things for your community and so on and so forth. So that's what I would define as working inside the system, right? Do you have any thoughts on that? Would you?
Yeah, I concur to some of that. I mean, I do think, like I said, working in the system is learning the system. Learning how to adapt to the system, learning how to place yourself and acclimate to this, or not, I want to be careful, not acclimate, because you don't necessarily need to be 100% acclimated, but know how to get yourself positioned into the system, right? And knowing, and from there, understanding the culture. Not necessarily mean you have to 100% adapt it. Understand the culture, right? And then from there and see what are some opportunities within the system to affect change? And where can you position yourself to go and also move up? Because another element of that equation is you also got to be really good at your job, right? And so people forget that. Some people want to come and affect change in the system, and you're not that excellent in your job, right? You may be mediocre, or you're not you not have put yourself in a position or sell in a position that really helps you move you into those positions and affect change. And part of sometimes working in a system is also waiting some time and some patience to understand that, hey, some of the changes I want, it's a bit frustrating, but it's also recognizing that, all right, what does change look like for me from 1 year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now?
Long time.
And learning to say, to some degree, I might have to pace myself because I didn't put the system together. I don't have all the controls right within it. But what are some opportunities for me to navigate, excel while excelling in my job, navigate in spaces that will help me to push for change over time? And so where I can become a senior manager and a director, and then I can hire people and give more people who look like me an opportunity to get hired, right? Obviously, they're qualified. I want to be careful because when people say that, they assume, oh, they're not qualified. No, obviously, they're qualified. So I don't, and so, but having those opportunities, because the reality is sometimes, when it comes to inside those spaces, you'll see people who may look one way, and they tend to hire the people who look one way, right? Not to say they're not opportunities for them to hire. You
can speak candidly.
But that's just the real. I mean, you'll see
white folks hiring white folks, or it could be Asians hiring Asians, or blacks hiring black. We know what that, but that mentality.
We see that in all different spaces, or may have a tendency to go and do that. And so, what does it mean being that change agent where you can be among the diverse pool, that it opens up that opportunities for others to have an opportunity to be in that space. And like I said, there are white advocates who will hire, black folks and give other minorities an opportunity, but it's also important to have those diverse, especially people of color, in that space, who can also help, like I said, push for some of those changes too. But what is being outside the system mean?
So real quick, I want to say, because I think I love your definition of inside the system. I think you expounded upon that, immensely, and gave us a great picture. We are, with this whole discussion, we're assuming that you're effectively trying to do something to change and to help your community.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So, we're kind of discounting the people that are inside the system or outside the system who just are kind of like, hey, we're getting it how we live. We don't care about the black community. We just doing our own thing, and we could care less if we help the community at large. We're not having a conversation about them. We're focused on the people that are saying, hey, whatever I'm involved in, whether I'm in the system or out of the system, I am trying to do things to effectively help the community. And our focus is the black community, right?
Yeah.
So to your question, outside the system, right? I would say those that are working outside the system, right? Those are going to be your individuals that are truly independent. They're not trying to be a part of the larger economic structure. They're not really concerned as much with the rules and the public policy as it currently stands. And so these are individuals that may start your memorable movements, Black Power movement. And to a degree, you could even argue the civil rights movement to an extent, right? Because people forget, but a lot of the civil rights movement at the time was perceived as very radical, right? And I think later on, it became a little bit more accepted because they wanted, and when I say they, the powers that be kind of wanted to co-opt the movement to a certain extent so that they could kind of control the movement and guide it to go where they wanted it to go. They knew they were going to have to make some changes, but it was like, okay, we can either guide this thing or we can just let it kind of be, organic and natural. They would much rather have it preferred to be guided. And so individuals who are really counterculture, they're really pushing the envelope. And like I said, they're not really trying to necessarily do the things that make sense. I would say a Kaepernick is an example of somebody who's working outside the system, right? Malcolm X, I would say, is an example. And people might say that those are radical people, but from a practical side, if you're looking at it from that perspective, you're saying, look, I don't think the system can be repaired. Or I don't think it can truly be saved. And so I've got to do something to basically build our own and build a parallel, or do what we can to break the system down so that it can be replaced with something much better. And so I think that mentality lends itself to someone who's thinking outside of the system or working outside the system.
Yeah, and I do think being independent, I do think it means, like I said, you are operating out of the traditional spaces, right, or the traditional systems and spaces and industries, or learning to operate your own. You are creating your own space in your lane. That's not being defined or easily defined or heavily influenced by the industries and stuff. So, like, oh hey, I'm Chance the Rapper. I'm going independent, right? Like he's going independent. He is controlling the fate of his music, right? Rather than working in a system, like I said, in a label company, and they kind of decide the fate. They have all the distribution deals. They can influence your music and your song and what your song should be. And so really able to have that direct control, willing to, like I said, help create a new system or alternative, or like I said, working to retain more control. And I'm not saying that don't necessarily, because part of independent, you can be independent and still have a relationship with the system.
Yeah, for sure.
But you're really working to have more of a you really, the power dynamic is different. It's rather than a employer or it's more of either a partnership,
independent
or
contractor type
arrangement where you have retained a lot more control.
Yeah.
That gives you some of the independence. And so I think independence come in many different forms and fashions. Overall, is there people out there you have examples that you feel like who are example or of people who are truly independent?
Yeah. So, and I think it's important to acknowledge that there are like gradations of independence, like kind of like what you said. And there's also a sufficient amount of overlap between those that are working in the system and those that are working outside the system. So nobody is truly totally outside the system. Nobody is truly totally inside the system if you're coming at it from the perspective of you are looking for how you can leverage where you are for the benefit of the Black community, right? There's going to be some things that you pull from outside of wherever you are, even if you are more or less an insider. Examples, I think, like I was saying, Kaepernick, I think, is an example of one. And yet and still, right, he was an employee of an NFL team, right? So in many ways, he was still a part of the system. I think sort of the quintessential example that we all think about is Malcolm X, right? The Nation of Islam had developed their own separate organization that was even apart from the Black church. So even, from a religious standpoint, they were apart from what was typical in the Black community, right? They had separate businesses. They had organizational structure to sort of educate children, Black children that were a part of the Nation of Islam, still do. And so that's kind of, I think, the shining example. But I think we can talk about real estate individuals. You see a lot of successful real estate. One that's coming to mind right now is Max Maxwell. He does a lot on YouTube. You see him. He kind of was big into wholesaling, but he's branched off in a lot of different areas. But as you meet people, you'll see a lot of Black individuals who've been successful in real estate, and they kind of did their own thing. They didn't necessarily go through the big real estate brokerages to accumulate a lot of wealth. They got land. They were able to, do a lot of deals and become sort of independently wealthy, if you will, right?
But can you be considered no longer independent if you're getting money from, let's say, the rich entrepreneurs or corporations? Like, for example, Black Lives Matter. Are they inside or outside the system? I mean, they get a lot of money from
They do. I
mean, they get from other corporations, other organizations.
I think that's where the line gets blurry, right? Because I think initially we would have said that a Black Lives Matter was a counter-cultural movement to an extent, and they were outside the system. But then what happens, and then this, like I said, this is what happened with the civil rights movement. You start to see corporations sort of like jump on it because they're like, oh, you know what? We can monetize on this to a certain extent. You know what I'm saying? We can make this a way. We can market this to people, and we can use it for our own motives, and not necessarily all bad, but not necessarily all good either, right? And so then you ask yourself, okay, are they now outside the system? Well, ideally they are, from an idealistic standpoint and from a, their methodology, right? But they are definitely using elements of the system to affect the change that they want to see.
And I think sometimes it depends on the terms of the arrangement, right? I think that dictates whether it's independent in the system.
Right.
Like I said, if you're collecting money, but they are dictating this and this and that, and you lose yourself in the process, I don't know if you're independent.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matters is an interesting one because there are cases where you can start off independent, but then you can transform to almost being towards closer to the system. Black Lives Matters is a blend because they've got more on that corporate donations, and here's where the struggle is, what people don't talk about. How does that line go? Because once you step in corporate, sometimes we're having some of these organizations that start off independent, then they get these donations, then they then they ask themselves, what do we do to keep these donations?
Yeah.
In the midst of trying to keep those donations or to keep the money going, they lose themselves in the process, and then they're conforming to what makes those donors and corporations happy. So how do you retain your independence through all that?
And we're going to talk about that when we come back from the break. The last thing, the other thing I want to ask you on that note, because you talked about how you start off independent and then you sort of get, entrenched in the system, so to speak, right? Can you do the other way around? Can it be where, you were in the system, hook, line, and sinker, and then you sort of have this epiphany and you're like, I want to be independent now. I'm tired of this. You know what I'm saying? Like, I made enough money, got my chips up, got the bag. Now I'm ready to go and be independent and do my own thing. I have somebody in mind who I'm thinking of. Who is it? I feel like Jay-Z did that to a certain degree. And I feel like Jay-Z got on a lot of his tracks within the past like 5 years to a decade and just really start talking greasy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what did he say? And he started growing his hair out. You know what I'm saying? He started doing things and kind of being unapologetically black, and not really trying to sort of be that corporate guy. And for a lot of people, like, well, he was never the corporate guy, whatever. But you go back far enough and you can see, like, he wasn't the corporate guy that was, pushing the safe pop music necessarily. But he had a lot of records that you could tell, like, he was the cutting edge of hip hop, and that's what they wanted to push out there. And he was trying to make money off it. So he wasn't going to go too far, you know what I'm saying, with his messaging. But he started, to me, I really want to say, was it the 4-4 album?
Yeah.
Where with I think about The Crown, I think about certain songs that just come to mind, like, and then what's the song he did with Meek Mill? It was Meek Mill, it was Jay-Z, and it was somebody else on there. What's the name?
Future.
Say it again.
Future.
I don't know if it was Future, but it was a song, and he was really talking like, you know.
Well, I mean, even the one he did with I think What It Feels off the Black Judas movie. That was pretty good.
Yeah, and so I do think it's possible. I think it's possible that you can be a part of the system and then start getting to a point where you're like, okay, I got enough money, I got enough influence. Like, now I'm really gonna put the imagery out there of us and black people, when I say us, and really just focusing on talking to us, empowering us, leading us, getting us to that next level.
Yeah. Like I said, I think it's intriguing, like, to figure out. But I mean, we see those people who go in the system, start a system, and they can end up independent. So those stories are there. Question is, what is the right path? And also understanding, how do we respect each other while we're in that space? Because you could be independent and be a sellout. You can be in the system, be a sellout, right? And still not be there for your community. So how do we respect each other in the respective spaces, understanding that our path to affecting change can be different?
Absolutely.
And that's why like I said, when we come back from our break, we're going to talk more about that. Dive into what does that look like between the system, going outside the system, how do we measure effectiveness, really dive into other industries. So when you come back, we'll hear more from us, from our perspective on that, whether are you in or out of the system. We'll come back on the Shot of E&J podcast.